So is that okay over there?
It's good white, right?
How's it look on your end for Facebook?
You mean for YouTube?
Oh, that's this one?
This one's YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Facebook looks fine.
What about YouTube?
YouTube, I'm
Too-
not even
Looking
lying.
too white. Is it
It's
white?
white.
But then again, my screen could just be dirty.
Nah, that's YouTube. It's white.
I don't know what we're gonna do about it.
It looks like y'all in the heavens.
Like
We
YouTube,
we are in the heavens. Do I not say?
Clouds.
YouTube is on now?
Yeah, they both on.
Check out YouTube.
It looks good.
Yeah, that's Facebook. YouTube, right?
Facebook,
We need to
Twitter.
get an alert.
They're just watching us troubleshoot the lighting. Anke Ma'at, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning, this last communion of 2020. Dua Nasser. Yes. We're just finalizing some things in the room here related to the lighting and the camera angles. And so in a minute or two, we will get started today with our daily prayer and then with the roll call. So give us a moment or two. Alton Alton Harmony. Alton Alton Lisa. Alton Alton Esrar. All right. Do you want to dive into our daily prayer? You ready? All right. Alton Alton Tatiana. Okay, so we'll get started with our daily prayer. We begin by saying Amatu Impanatir, Sawek Tuam Impanatir, Aul Duauma, Kedi Paharu. The translation is give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and may tomorrow be as today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the light of who comes to us in the form of the Neteru Ra, who is the light of vitality, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the truth and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality. And in the moments of crisis and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at.
Amen.
Ma'akaru.
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 Dua Nasser. I got tripped up with that. We needed the light of vitality this week. This week was the Web and Jed. This week was the winter solstice. So we needed the light of vitality this week. I needed the light of vitality this week, apparently. Dua Nasser, y'all have my back, though. Thank you for that. Okay. All right, so let's dive into the roll call. Where is everybody joining us from? I think I saw somebody in White Plains already, but I think that's all I saw. So let's see who's joining us today and where you all are joining us from. Dua Nasser. Newark, the Brick City's in the building. Dua Netter. Lincoln, Nebraska's in the building. Uncle my aunt Jason. Alton Azrar from Edmond, Oklahoma. Harlem, New York is in the building. Dua Netter. Kansas City, Missouri. Royal Palm Beach. Philadelphia. Basil done took a vacation. Hold up, Basil.
Yeah.
Royal Palm Beach. Spartanburg, South Carolina is in the building. Orange, New Jersey. Louisville, Kentucky is in the building. Dua Netter. Philadelphia is in the house. That's what's up. Brooklyn in the house. I'll give my aunt Joanne. Houston, Texas is in the place to be. Lorraine, Ohio. Dua Netter. Yes, yes. Michigan's in the building. That's what's up. Orlando, Florida. Dua Netter. Dua Netter. Dua Netter. Cleveland, Mississippi.
Johannesburg,
Dua Netter.
South Africa. Right?
Yes. Johannesburg, South Africa. Dua Netter.
International.
Dua Netter.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think that might be the first time we've seen Milwaukee in the house. So that's what's up. That's what's up.
First time we saw Nebraska too, huh?
No, Jason's joined us a few times.
Oh, I remember Jason.
Yeah. We got Toronto in the house. The DMV is in the building. London, England,
Okay.
joining us from across the pond. That's what's up. Royal Palm Beach. Nice. Far Rockaway Beach. NYC. Yes. That's what's up. That's what's up. And Illinois. That's what's up. Dua Netter. Dua Netter. Yeah, Jason said he here all the time. I tell you, Jason here all the time. Long Island. Uncle my aunt Neota. Yes, yes. Good things. Peace from Kansas City. That's what's up. Yeah. All right, so let's dive it right in. I got a couple of announcements I want to share with you guys. First off, stay tuned because sometime in the next week or so, we're going to drop an audio recording that will give you some guidelines as to the energy of 2021 and what you all need to do to start to empower yourself and to live in tune with 2021. So essentially, I'm talking about the reading of the year. You know, we've conversed with the Netru. They've given us the insight and the guidance that they need for us to have as a community about what challenges we're going to face in 2021. What do we need to be prepared for? And what do we need to do to shore up our resources and our defenses to make sure we come out on top? So what we're going to do is we're going to record our dialogue on that subject and have it available on the templeofanew.org, our website, for audio download. And throughout the course of the year in communions and other special discussions, conversations, downloads, etc., we will be continuing to talk about the reading of the year, to continue to expound on it, to talk about where we see the energies manifesting and how we see them manifesting, to talk about what we need to do to what additional work and things we could do to make ourselves stronger and better, and how we can come back around to next December and be ma'akaru and be victorious and be triumphant and have come through stronger and better than we started this year. So I'm really looking forward to being able to share you all with that. Share that with you all. It's actually a pretty good reading, and I really feel like it's one of those types of readings that's really just focused on like our collective success. Like the insight that is given is like, y'all could be good this year. Y'all could be successful this year if. And so we're going to get into what that means and get into all the specifics and give you guys some real specific steps that y'all need to do so you can make that if yes. Like, we don't want it to be possible, maybe, blah, blah, blah. We want it to be definite. So what do you need to do to take if and make it definite? And that's what we're going to get into in the download of the reading of the year. So stay tuned for that. So you guys can download that and have that very soon. Another thing that I think we want to share is to stay tuned to the launch of the Sip Biddy's podcast. You want to talk about your podcast?
You can talk about it. I've already talked on it.
Yes. The Sip Biddy has been working for a few weeks now on launching a podcast, and this podcast is for the brothers primarily. Although I know that the sisters, from some of the stuff he's been talking about, I'm like, the sisters is gonna love this too. Like, but honestly, the Sip really wants to speak to the brothers and start with the brothers and talk to the men about just some topics that's really important to what it means to be a black man right now, what it means to be a man right now, standing up for your masculinity, standing up for your standards, and figuring out how it is that you carry yourself strong. What happens if you didn't have the right father figures, or you don't have the right men in your life, and things like that. Like, he's like, all right, so just because we didn't have the example don't mean we get to fall short as men, right? So he's going to talk to the brothers, start with the brothers in his podcast, The God Mentality, yes?
God Mentality Podcast,
Yeah.
The King's Corner YouTube
On
page.
YouTube, yes. So that's going to be launching soon, and so we want you all to stay tuned for that. That'll give you guys an opportunity to hear from the Sip Biddy more directly on topics. When we talk at Kemmunion, we're focusing on the wisdom teachings. We're focusing on the 42 laws of Ma'at. We're focusing also on the reading of the year. Sometimes we don't explicitly say that our communions are based off the reading of the year, but most of the time, our communions are guided by the reading of the year. Like, we're thinking about the reading of the year and how it is that the wisdom that we're giving in the reading is going to help, how what we're talking about in communion is going to help guide you back to making sure you manifest the reading, etc. So this is an opportunity to talk about some other subjects and to talk outside of that, to talk bigger than that, to talk in addition to that, and things like that. And so I'm just looking forward to it. The energy that he's been bringing is just really, really powerful. And so I know it's going to be really great, and I hope you all are looking forward to it. So stay tuned. Again, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. He's going to have his own personal Facebook page soon, so stay tuned for that, so you can follow him also on Facebook. You'll be able to follow him on YouTube, etc. So all of that information about how you can follow him, and we'll be dropping soon. So follow us, the Temple of Anu, on Facebook and Instagram, so that you could get connected to Nasip Biddy, his podcast, his YouTube page, and his Facebook page. Lastly, I want to talk about the First Down Kemet orientation that's coming up on January 9th, but I'm going to really save that because I want to talk about First Down Kemet. Last time I talked about how we had a graduating class, and today we want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that graduating class. But first, I want to go all the way back to June 2020, because in June 2020, we had the winter 2020 graduating class of First Down Kemet. We had started that First Down class like in January or February last year, and we were kind of meeting with them in person and like a hybrid of in person and online. And then COVID came and shut everything down. And they managed to stay extremely resilient and focused through that challenge. They were really driven and focused on how it is that they could become Kemetic, and how it is that they can incorporate those teachings in their lives, and just really focused on making sure that they followed through on that part of their journey. When we got to the point where they had all finished the class, they took the test, they all passed, they graduated, it was triumphant. And we were like, normally we have our graduation ceremonies in person. And they were like, we want to wait, because we want to be able to celebrate in person. We want to be able to hug our brothers and hug our sisters. We want to be able to like, whoop, whoop, etc. together. And so we didn't do a graduation for them at the time. We really thought we were going to be close to being back in person and being able to hold ceremonies in person. And now here we are 6 months later, and we realize like we're not close to that at all. So they've been extremely patient. They've been working through the last 6 months. They've been in their Kemetic Men's Mastery training course, and the sisters have been in Kemetic Women's Wisdom training, and they're well on their way to being initiates of the temple very, very soon. We'll be hosting probably a naming ceremony for them in the next like 2 or 3 months. And so I'm just super proud of them. Like I said, I'm super proud of the resiliency that they demonstrated and the tenacity, like the steadfastness. They ain't let none of that COVID stuff, they ain't let none of them challenges stop them. They had a goal in mind that they wanted to learn more about this legacy. They wanted to perfect the ways that they live in this legacy as Kemetic people, and they wanted to submit themselves to the wisdom and the guidance of the Neteru and of the ancestors, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get there. So first and foremost, let me acknowledge our winter 2020 graduates of First Ion Kemet: Jalima Johnson, Doris Johnson Brown, Peyton Brown, Vonsil Ratti, Shaquem Bey, Deborah Sledge, Tatiana M. Toussaint, Basil Butcher Jr., Trey Nefer Muima Ma'at, and Tuesday Riccardi. I just want to acknowledge them from like I said, they graduated all the way back in June. And this is really the first time that we had the opportunity to acknowledge them. And I really do wish that we were together in person to do this so I could hug them and celebrate them. And we'll be together in person again soon. But they deserve the acknowledgement. They deserve the respect for everything that they put in. So back in like May or June, we actually started advertising for our next First Down Kemet group. Mm-hmm. And we knew that that group was going to be fully online. And it was the first time that we ever had a fully online course. Normally we have hybrid courses, and some of our students are in person and some of them are online. We were super excited to do a fully online course and just take the opportunity to continue to keep the community motivated and driven, and give you all a greater access to more tools and resources that you could use to connect yourself back to the Neteru of your ancestors. And when we started putting out the word for the summer 2020 First Eye graduates, we got a response. Like, we had more people sign up for that class than we've had sign up for any First Eye class in probably like over a decade. Like, it was one of the biggest classes we ever had. Their passion was so palpable, their commitment was so strong, and they were a group of students who just wanted to learn. They were so hungry for knowledge. They came to class with these really thoughtful and bright questions. Some of them were really smart about connecting with each other, and they were studying together on the side. They had their WhatsApp group happening to communicate with each other and to connect with one another and to stay on top of the information. And because like when First Down Kemet, we give a lot of information. Like sometimes we'd be like, is this too much information? And so they was like going through it, studying together. They was coming back to class with questions that they came up with it through their study time. And it was so impressive that throughout the fact that, you know, folks was having family members with COVID, folks was having family members that were struggling with finances and with jobs and things like that. Like with everything that was going on in the world, I think by that point the protests had started all over the country, protesting for George Floyd, protesting for Breonna Taylor, the Black Lives Matter movement. All of that stuff was happening in the world. The elections happening, and yet and still, they still managed to make space for and prioritize their spiritual and cultural development and growth. They still were able to step back and to determine that their spiritual growth was so important to them that they would not allow that commitment to slack off no matter what. They would not allow themselves to be distracted from that. From nothing that happened could distract them from that. That is such a testament to what it is to be determined, to be resilient, and what it is to Amatu and Pa Netir, give yourself to Neter daily, right? Like, we are people who are supposed to live a life of service and live a life of commitment. And they really did show us what that looks like in practice. So I want to just say I'm super proud of them also. I'm going to read their names in a second, but first I'm going to share a passage from Ankh Shashanki, which is a passage that I feel is good advice for anyone who is submitting themselves to be a student, anyone who is striving to learn. Ankh Shashanki tells you to examine every matter that you may understand it. Do not say, I am learned, but rather set yourself to become wise. Be gentle and patient, and then your character will be beautiful. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. So every time that we allow ourselves to submit to being taught, every time that we humble ourselves enough to go within and to reflect on the teachings, to reflect on how the teachings are changing us, evolving us, improving us, we are essentially making ourselves better men and women. We are cultivating and molding ourselves in the form of Ma'at. And that is what we all, as men and women of Ma'at, as men and women of this legacy, that is our goal, that is our intention, and that is our divine purpose. So let me recognize our First Zion Kemet Summer 2020 graduates. Anitra Barclay, Asrar Johnson, Bonham, Darlene McCrae, Falake Youngblood, Jason Coley, Jodine Johnson, Katrina Midget, Kimberly Roach, Linda Sylvester, sorry, I don't know why I'm tripping up, Linda Sylvester, Lisa Attaway, Lori Adams, Nazaha Anan, Nyota Neo, Randy Ferguson, Tracy White, Tristine Garnes, and Abut Cheseret Miast Neta. And I also want to acknowledge a few other students who stuck it out with us all the way to the end of the class, and for a variety of reasons, they did not take the MAAT exam to be official like graduates, but they stuck it out to the end, and some of them got to the end and they experienced some personal challenges and disruptions that caused them to need to take a break and pull away to care for loved ones, to care for elders in their community, elders in their family, and etc. And so I just want to acknowledge them because, again, they really gave it their all and they really did their best. Taishka Green, Priestess Ariana Renanutet Sekamet, Zakia Ma'a Kepara Ast, and Neferka Ra. I just want to acknowledge you as well for the work that you put in and for your commitment that you demonstrated. So last thing I'm going to ask is for those of you who are graduates of the summer 2020 or the winter 2020, you all should have received by now your certificate in the mail of graduation, except for you, Trey, because I just got your email yesterday, but yours is coming. So the rest of you should have your certificates already. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is please take a picture of yourself with your certificate, post it to your Facebook or your Instagram page, and tag the temple in that picture with the hashtag First Zion Kemet. I really want to see you all, and I really want to see you all with your certificates so we can continue to celebrate you throughout the course of this week. I thank you in advance for doing that. And so lastly, I will remind that we have orientation for the winter 2021 session of First Zion Kemet coming up on January 9th. So anyone who is interested in possibly being a part of the next cycle of this transformative and incredible experience, please send an email to templeofanew@gmail.com so that you can get the Zoom information for our orientation, where we will talk about things like what we go over in the course subjects. We will talk about course fees and the frequency that we meet, how things is managed on Zoom, and we'll answer any other questions that you have. I really just, look forward to having the next group of you who are committed and determined to make this your way of life join us on this journey. And I just last time will shout out and express much love and gratitude and excitement and congratulatory energy to our graduates from 2020.
Yeah, I want to add to that too. I want to say congratulations to the class because I know they didn't see me the last three classes. So I just wanted to address them personally and say congratulations, and that they were a good bunch of students. It was a pleasure working with them also, and I know everyone's not going to go on in the journey, but I still want to commend every one of them for completing something. Because it's one thing to be in the obscurity out there in media, in social media, but to step up and take a class, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for our people because we often leave so many things in our lives undone. So to complete something is a big deal. And as we've been around almost 30 years, so as we continue building and establishing our works in the community, that certificate that you have is going to appreciate in time. Now, to those who are going to go on for further initiation to the Kemetic Men's Mastery Course, Mastery Training, and Kemetic Women's Wisdom Training, I say, welcome to the beautiful struggle.
Yes. To my answer.
And so you're going to go through some things. Being on this path is going to agitate some things with your ancestors. Your ancestors are going to make you deal with some things. We call it karmic debt. So you have to contextualize certain things and experiences of your past to make way for the things coming down the pike. I hope you understand that. You got to contextualize your experiences from the past to make way, to open way for the experiences coming down the pike. So you're going to go through some things personally. And that's all naturally part of this process. You're going to go through some things personally, and you might even go through some things with us personally, as well as a community. And I think that's the realest thing I can say right now, because a lot of organizations and spiritual communities, I feel like sometimes they come off when you join them, they make it seem like you're joining heaven, that everything is going to be perfect. You're like, no, you're joining work. Mm-hmm. Joining spiritual community is joining the work, is participating in a lot of work that nobody else wants to do. So there's a lot of philosophizing and spouting platitudes about black folks, what we need to do, what's our culture, what's our spirituality, how to do it. It's a lot of philosophizing, but to be in it, feet on the ground, hands in the dirt, that's work. That's going to stir up some things. So now information is one thing, but experience is everything.
Yes.
And people are always rich with experiences. So on this path, you're going to renew yourself and rebirth yourself. Everything has to be done all over again. How you speak, how you walk, how you talk, how you present yourself. Watch this. You have to be reintroduced to how you experience joy. Reintroduced to how you experience disappointment. That sounds crazy. Reintroduced how you experience pain. And people don't like that. They be trying to make spirituality in your people and your culture, and they try to divorce it from pain. Pain is a regular part of life. This time you'll be trained and expected to deal with those same experiences in life more wisely and maturely. Now, and like you said, you mentioned the past two classes. I want to say big up to the past two classes that didn't get their names yet, that they're up for their names, right? Two.
You talking about going all the way back to Jehudi Mess group?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Jehudi Mess group and Basil's in the group.
Well, I mentioned Basil's group. I didn't mention Jehudi Mess's group.
So I big up them for holding the course.
Yeah.
I big up the Temple of Anu. I big up to the righteous and respectful chat. So I'm looking at the numbers we have. We keep this intimate number. I know this is our community, is intimate, and I know that sometimes we get excited about wanting the numbers to be big because we don't have the biggest platform, but we have a true platform. We have a sincere platform. I like to believe we have real dialogue here and deal with real things that people are going through, and we don't just stay conceptual, just talking about history of our ancestors and other things. Like, we're making it a living experience. So to that, I want to end it on a note by saying it's usually small groups of people that change the world, not big groups of people. So this is our thing. So let us just embrace it and let us change the world.
Do all that, sir.
So we're officially starting. That was community.
That was the Show me about that. No, we're joking.
No, I just we'll do a short lesson. I want to do kind of like a summary of the past two communions that you did, which was very powerful. You spoke 2 communions ago about the ego, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes how the ego gets in the way of you learning some lessons. Mm-hmm. We have a significant portion of our community just stuck in certain emotional states because they can't get past this stuff. Mm-hmm. They can't make the necessary shifts, changes, and transformations. Mm-hmm. And then the last communion, you spoke on your personal experience when I was down, and how being a leader is most of the time a thankless job. So here you were in crisis, not knowing if I was going to live or die. And it takes a lot to even think straight when that type of crisis hit your life. And yet you were still strong for the temple. And yet, so we're talking about the ego, yet Like a few people actually ask you directly, why didn't you think of them? Why didn't you
Right.
call me? And then,
Right.
like they're the last people that you're thinking about in the middle of crisis. So sometimes we have to deal with the audacity that we have dealing with each other sometimes. So in the middle of crises, you want somebody to think about you. You want a personal call. So we have to deal with ego. All of this leads back down to a lesson that I had a few years back. It was called Staying Conscious Through the Crises. Y'all
Yes.
remember that? I might have to reinstitute that lecture series, might be starting now. Staying conscious through the crises. Keeping aware of your identity, your true identity, which is your connection to the source and your ancestors. That's your true identity. Because if you don't stay aware and stay centered in that identity, then the crises is going to give you the identity. And unbeknownst to you, the crises will shape you into becoming something that's unbecoming of who you are and what it is that you are striving to be. So all that's to say is that you're not timid, you're not afraid, you're not angry, you're not resentful, and you're not untrusting. Though that is not your true nature. I'm saying these are the things that come up when crises identify you.
Right.
So a lot of people are not living in real time because they have so many triggers. So their triggers are taking them back to their past, and they're not reacting authentically in live time. Now you see what I'm saying when I say sometimes you have to contextualize certain experiences in your past to open the way to make way for the blessings and the new opportunities coming up in the future. And sometimes we spoil it by not being able to contextualize the past. So it takes us back to the lesson of the year that I kept saying. I remember I said I hashtagged, I said, mind your mind.
True.
Haru was the energy of the year. So mind your mind was what we were supposed to be doing the whole year. So now as we come into the new year, it's going to be mind your mind / manage your ego. That's what we're going into the new cycle with. Managing your ego, minding your mind. Remember, Haru is also the energy of this new year. I think, remember I said when Haru is invoked, that means there's a battle imminent.
Right.
So they said next year, when we did the reading, we said next year could have a bigger battle than this past year.
Yes.
So what could that be? Did y'all hear that there's a new strain of the virus that's supposed to be very aggressive?
Mm-hmm.
What about the Christmas present everybody got this year, which was December 26th, I think, was the last day of unemployment for a whole lot of people. And they have not yet signed the new stimulus package. What about the vaccine? So you had certain people that are scared to death this last whole cycle with this COVID. Some people didn't even want to talk about it. Talking about it, even trying to console them as spiritualists, it was agitating certain people. It was bothering them. They just was too uncomfortable to talk about this. And it was our responsibility to give you or to encourage you to have the proper mental stance about this whole thing. Yet it was agitating a bunch of, so people were secretly as well as openly afraid, couldn't even have a conversation. Now here we're about to go into a new year with possibly another virus, possibly another shutdown. What y'all gonna do? Fear is debilitating. Maybe that's your new monster for the year. If you thought you got away safe but not addressing or facing your fear, now it might happen again. So now there's no unemployment for a lot of people. So you were safe that last cycle. You're like, okay, I'll stay home, I eat. Now what happens if you got to go another 6 months like last year with no reinforcements coming in? That might be certain people's monster. Understand, to be Haru, to be the warrior, you need a demon. You need a monster to fight. You can't just be Haru for the sake of being Haru. You're going to need a monster. So for some people, their monster might be, what the heck I'm going to do with my finances? Some people's monster is, what happens if I get that virus? Am I strong enough? Some people's monster is the vaccines. There was a lot of people talking tough last year about vaccine. I ain't getting no vaccine. And you had certain people like, I'm getting it or whatever. So that might be certain people's monster. Now they have the vaccine. So are you going to hold the line and not get it like you was bragging about next year? What about if you can't go back to work? So I want to deal with that. Like, I don't want to tell people what to do. I don't want to come off like I'm trying to make people feel bad about the decisions that they make. We're all adults. at this point. So if you want to take that vaccine and you feel like that's best for you and your family, have at it. And I hope that works out for you. And that's no shade, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty about that. And those of you who took the stance that you're not going to take it, fine. I hope that works out for you too. That's fair, right? So I'd rather you stand on something you believe and possibly die than you be faking around with something you don't really believe and die. That's where the guilt and stuff. So my thing is, find your truth and stand on that truth. So go back to mine in your mind. So we're talking about a brief lesson about the ego, or should we say the poor ego response. That's what that was the essence of your lesson, the poor ego responses. It's poor ego responses that are responsible for why we're not making significant shifts, changes, and transformations in our community. We talk around it a lot of times. Some people choose to be justified in transitory emotional states over emotional sovereignty. I'll repeat that. Some people choose to be justified or try to justify themselves in transitory emotional states because you get emotional and it passes. Sometimes when you're in that emotion, you say some certain things and you do certain things that's not based on truth or wisdom, and you actually damage your relationships. So we should always be striving for emotional sovereignty. Some people want to be right so badly rather than release themselves from the toxic emotion that they'll be willing to destroy a relationship just to be right about a petty point. Is that here? Some people will destroy relationships just to be right about a petty point instead of release themselves from the toxic emotion. Sometimes we're on both sides. Sometimes we accuse people of certain things. Sometimes we get accused of things. I'm talking about everybody.
Right.
And that word narcissism keeps floating around. People are just using that word all over the place. But sometimes you get accused of a poor ego response when simply you're exercising your right to challenge what you perceive as a half truth. Because just because somebody say, I feel this about you, doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
So you have the right to challenge what you perceive as a half truth, especially when it comes to your reputation. You cannot relax when somebody has certain criticisms that might hurt your reputation. So you have the right to challenge if that's true or that feeling is based in truth. And I feel like this is a hairy area in our community. So we're going to suspend the history and all of this stuff. We got to start talking real if everybody want to see some real changes. So in me and how I approach life, I like to deal with the 500-pound elephant in the room. Because a lot of people in our community, they talk broad strokes about what's going on in our community, but we got to deal with the 500-pound elephant in the room. We got to deal with the dust under the rug. Like, yo, what's up with your rug? Why it's off the ground right now? So we become masters at avoiding the obvious, and the obvious is the ego. People like to fool themselves into thinking that they come to spirituality for history. They think they come into the temple for history and culture and all of that stuff, when ego is the secret motivator. It is ego that brings you here. It is ego that keeps you here. It is ego that makes people leave. The ego that brings you here, you were like, oh, a lot of times people get into things like this and they think it's supposed to be all light and love. It's supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be perfect. Waiting. We was just waiting for you in your imperfection. All of us was perfect, waiting for you in your imperfection. Oh, so they'd be like, God accepts you how you are. And next thing you know, now people are not putting forth their best effort because somebody told them God accepts them the way they are. Until you figure out who you really are. Because most of the times you're leading with your false self. You're coming with a bunch of conditionings from your family, from the education system, and you're bringing that into your spiritual community. And those things have to be undone. So some people have this ideal image on what they think this process is supposed to look like. So it becomes a draw when people say, come as you are. There's no judgment. There's always judgment. We just don't judge hastily. That's what our tradition teaches. We just don't judge hastily. For those who don't know what hastily is, it means you don't judge quickly. So it is ego that keeps people here. we start getting all proud of our temple and our organization. Oh, we're the blackest of the blackest. Or we're doing the most. Oh, our teachers, our leaders are the better than those leaders over there. We're blacker than them over there. We do more for the community than over. We gave money to these people. What did your people give money to? You know, that's all ego. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. We're going to get into the perception of ego. There's nothing wrong with those things, but then it's ego and why people leave. The same reasons that brought you here, the same reasons that were attracted you to come here, the same reasons people leave. So you saw a tight-knit community, and because you might have been rough around the edges energetically, that you didn't quite mesh the way you thought you should have, then you leave talking about they cliquish. You're like, no, those people worked on their relationship, and you haven't quite found the code to see how and where you fit in. So cliquishness is not necessarily a bad thing. African spirituality is cliquish. All Christianity is a clique. The Moorish science is a clique, and the Muslims is a clique. And each one of them has different what they call them, denominations. The world is clicked up. You ain't no place you're gonna go where they're not clicked up. So get that out your vocabulary. Everybody has the right to set rules, set a precedent in which you're supposed to be about. Understand? So, the ego is not a bad thing. I think we got that the ego was bad from the Asians. And that's why we have to be very careful with what we're absorbing and trying to interpret as African philosophy and spirituality. So yes, there's a lot of commonalities between what we do in the Asian tradition, but it's not all ours. Some people are like, oh, it's all African. And now nobody's distinguishing between what's authentically African. It's all African. So the ego has got this bad rap primarily through the Asian system. The ego is bad. You need to be here on earth to prosper. You need a healthy ego.
Right.
So I'm not here to beat up on the ego. I'm talking about the poor ego response, which is when the id gets let loose. There's really nothing wrong with the ego. For those who don't know, there's the id, there's the ego, is the super ego. Mm-hmm. So the id, when people be calling the ego, is really the id slipping into things. So no, the ego's not bad. You need a healthy ego to prosper on earth. So you're not here to self-efface yourself. I think we get that from the Asian traditions too, like Buddhism and things like that. Self-efface yourself. You're nothing. You become a yes man and doing everything for everyone else. And it's time for us to stop doing that. Like, we need to start interpreting our reality from the African perspective. I was watching the Harriet Tubman movie, and she was on the run. I don't know if it was true or not, but it's just interesting discourse. It was like, it struck me a certain way. It was the same when she was escaping and they was about to track her down. She was on a bridge, and y'all seen the movie? She got up on the edge of that bridge, and she was about to jump, and the white man was like, Harriet, don't do it. And like, cause he can't, don't do it. And I'm just like, oh, what's going on? It's like, I thought he was gonna say, I love you. And then I thought he was gonna be like, oh, he loved her all this time. It wasn't, he just said, don't do it. And then she was looking at him like, why? She even gave him the time. Then let me see what this cracker got to say about me killing myself. He said, if you do that, God is going to be upset with you because it's a sin to do suicide. I was just like, whoa, he used her own morals against her. You know, I would be like, yo, what's your God have to say about slavery? Right. So your God is going to be mad at me for killing myself, but he's okay with your behavior. So I'm talking about these concepts that we get from other systems that constantly tell us that we're nothing and we're the lowest of the low, and that us as black folks are somehow selfish and we need to learn how to work with other people. Isn't that some audacity? That we're told we're the lowest of the low and we're selfish and we need to learn how to work with others. We need to learn how to work with others. We're seeing everybody come up, but we keep getting told we need to work how to work with others. They be constantly pandering for the black vote with no intent on promising giving us anything, but we need to learn how to work with others. We see the Indians and the Chinese come into our communities. We work with them, we give them money, and yet they don't donate to anything for the improvement of our community, yet we need to work with others. We say Black Lives Matter. And I'm not talking about the organization. We all know what we're talking about. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about a state of mind, not that organization. So we say Black Lives Matter, then they say all lives matter. You see what I'm saying? They keep trying to tell us that we don't matter and make it seem like we got the biggest ego in the world. We gotta have the biggest ego in the world, or we won't exist no more, because everybody got their foot on our neck and spitting on us and treating us, and we still saying I'm God and I'm goddess. We got to do it that way. So we say Black Lives Matter, they say all lives matter. We know all lives matter. But when we say Black Lives Matter for us means all lives matter. Does that make sense? When we say Black Lives Matter, because y'all telling us everybody else and everything else matters, but nobody said Black Lives Matter. So we got to say Black Lives Matter. So when we say Black Lives Matter, that means all lives matter. Because when you do right for black folks, we do right for everybody. We've done right for everybody that nobody wants to do right for us back. So you don't got to tell us that all lives matter. So no, the ego is not this bad thing. There's the what we're calling the ego is the selfish self. Mm-hmm. There's the selfish self, and then there's the selfless self. I know it sounds like an oxymoron. Both of them is still just a concept, an idea. There's the selfish self, meaning I, me. I want to eat. I want more. I want your food. Mm-hmm. I want your attention. Pay attention to me. That's the selfish self. Mm-hmm. When you got enough, but somehow you still feel like you want more, you want something someone else got. That's the selfish self. And then there's the selfless self. There's a part of you that's incorporeal. There's a higher consciousness that's operating through you, that's receiving data through your body and your mind on how is navigating this reality. That's the selfless self. So it's still an aspect of it, of yourself, but it's not associated with your physical body. I hope y'all understand what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So the selfish self is talking about my body. Like, you got to defend yourself, my immune system, my arm, my leg. And in reality, you are not the arm, you are not the leg. You are an incorporeal thing that's working through this thing. That's why they talk about being in the world, but not of it. Being in the world, but not of it. So they say this world is a school. Some say the word school is connected to the Swahili word shule, but it's actually coming from the Hebrew word shuel. And shuel is hell. Y'all ever heard of that? Heaven and hell is on earth. Mm-hmm. So shuel is hell. So earth is hell. If we say earth is a school, then earth is hell. But respectfully, shuel in Hebrew means the grave. So we keep talking about we're not this body, we're not this arm. But when we say me, we be like me. So we get it confused in thinking that this body is us, when in reality we're saying something inside this body is us, but we just can only point to the body, because we're really referencing an internal dimension or inner dimension where we're working from the inside out, because this body is kind of like a spacesuit. It's a vehicle. That's why you have to keep the body in shape and the mind in shape. There's a connection between the mind and the body. So you keep the mind and the body shape, you're sharp. It means these things are vehicles for that not self, or that selfless self. You understand? That selfless self is working through this vehicle that's being in the world, but not of it. So you're being reborn within this vehicle. So you have to understand that you can see and experience heavenly states. And you can see and experience that, well, I say you can see and experience elevated states. You can see and experience heaven through elevated states of consciousness. That's what I mean. You can see and experience heaven through elevated states of consciousness. And you can see and experience hell through degraded states of consciousness. Yes. All of those are manufactured within the mind, body, spirit complex. Right. Now there's a thin line between the mind and the environment. Like I said, that's why you got to keep your mind sharp. You're not your mind either. You're not your body. So that not self, that selfless self uses your mind and your spirit and your body to navigate how it's going to establish its divinity on earth. So it's getting all this data to know how to navigate the situation. So it's a thin line between the mind and the environment. That's why our text said, learn the function and the structuring of the sky. Learn the function and structuring of the earth. Like, I know it's a lot of information. That's why we have to have communions to slow down the talk, because our community is a victim of the broad stroke. Oh, the white man is the devil. That's a broad stroke. The black man is God. That's a broad stroke. Oh, astrology, this broad stroke. These things have to be, these conversations have to be slowed down. And what does it mean? Like, to give credit to Muada Ashby, he has a way of approaching the Ma'at philosophy. He said it starts with the listening to the teachings. That's what you do on communion. You all are listening to the teachings. That's the easiest part. All conscious people think they listen to teachings. And then the second part is to study the teaching. And the third part is now to reflect deeply upon the teachings. So I say our community is challenged in the latter two. Everyone listens. Everyone likes a good speaker. I feel like black folks are the best speakers in the world. Like, nobody can match us when it comes to that wordplay. I watched the Asian Masters. I watched everybody. Nobody got that thing like black folks. Even when we messed up saying some crazy stuff, we got everybody captivated. So we got that Jehudi piece. So we like listening to captivating speakers, even if they're wrong. We like listening to them, even if we know that they're half true. But the study thing. So when I follow up and I ask people just logical questions based off of what it is that they claim they believe, I often find them lacking. And then what about the deeper reflection? I could tell in conversations whether people really take what they believe very seriously or not. So we're spiritual beings having a physical experience as we navigate this reality. So in that, I'll segue into, what was that cycle on the 21st? The Saturn.
The grand conjunction.
The grand conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter, right? So we're talking about expansion and contraction. So ultimately, when you talk about expansion and contraction, you're talking about Ma'at. You're talking about the scales of Ma'at. You're talking about complementarity. You're talking about yin and yang. Yin and yang is each side are constantly trying to transform the other. It's not trying to dominate. Each one is folding into one another, trying to transform. So the lesson moving forward from the 21st is some people will cosmically be charged to step up, step out, and expand. And others are cosmically charged to fall back. Meaning those of you who are too loosey-goosey and you lack discipline, now it's your turn to contract, conserve, and restrict yourself. Why? Because you had too many scattered thoughts. Scattered thoughts equals leaking, wasting of time, and wasting energy. So because you wasted time and energy through scattered thoughts, you don't have the available energy to make an impact. This is the scary part for a lot of people, because you needed to be doing the serious work for at least the past 10 years. Supposed been 20 years. At least the past 10 years, you needed to be doing the serious work to really benefit from that thing that happened on the 21st. So cosmically, some people have been put on timeout, whether they wanted to or not. And subconsciously, you wanted them to be put on timeout, because some people be strategically under-delivering and underperforming, thinking nobody's noticing. But you've been put on notice. Timeout. You on timeout. And then there's those who are planning and scheming and dreaming. Now it's those people's time to come out unapologetically and unhesitatingly. Now is the time for those people to live themselves into their experience. So synchronicity for those people that were doing the work for the past 10 years, their magic, the synchronicity or the magic of their synchronicity is going to be off the charts. So ironically, it's sometimes the ones that's trying to fall back are the ones that's supposed to be expanding now. And the ones that's thinking they trying to go to their next level, those are the ones that's supposed to be contracting. Life, your ancestors in the universe is going to let you know who's who, because everybody's not on the same level. Some of us in our own circle is going to be expanding. Some of in our own circles are going to be contracting. And it could be uncomfortable for us because we naturally want to all do it on the same level. So I said, yin and yang are both trying to transform one into the other. So in order for that, So yang is trying to transform the yin and the yang, and the yin is trying to transform the yang into the yin. So in order to do that, you need discipline, awareness, and direction. Once again, in order to make those successful transformations or the transmutations, you need discipline, awareness, and direction. For instance, let's go through a few examples. So for some people, this past 9 months, 6 months, your waistline has been expanding. That's the Jupiter. Your waistline has been expanding, so you have to restrict your calories, right? Your waistline is so that's Jupiter and Saturn. One thing is expanding because these things could be happening simultaneously inside your body. It doesn't have to be, oh, Hasseti's expanding and Armin Cow is restricting. Everybody's expanding and restricting in certain aspects, and that's why I said it's ma'at. You have to find a balance. So some people got to learn to shut their mouth. Some people are way too opinionated. Some people are way too comfortable with their opinions that they need to shut their mouth but open their mind. You see the restriction and the contraction. They need to chill out with their social media and all of that this year and just open your mind. So what are the ancestors really trying to download to you? Some people don't need to close their mind, but they need to slow their mind, slow the thoughts of their mind, and then open their mouths so they can speak more truths. So you see the Jupiter and Saturn there. Some people are off the charts with their emotions. They need to chill with their emotions and learn to be and expand their intuition, especially in relationships. Everybody's got into the I feel this and I feel that, and you feel it. Everybody's always feeling some sort of way. Now it might be time for you to pull back and learn to intuit yourselves through your relationship. Maybe you ain't got to say how you feel if we all learn how to intuit each other, because remember we have this narcissism. Narcissism is high in the air these days. So the Jupiter and Saturn thing happened on December 21st. It's interesting when these cycles come up, there's always this exciting talk and everybody's making this big deal like it's going to be mystical, magical, and everybody's going to come after the 21st. Everybody's going to have superpowers and stuff. And then after, so what day is the 27th now? I ain't heard nobody say nothing like, yo, what happened to the superpowers? Nobody got no superpowers online. So everybody was going through whole discourse. It's going to be off the hook. Black people's on the rise. The gods is back. And everybody's waking up and feel just like the regular day. And I'm sure some people have experienced it, but it was pushed out there like it was going to be this collective thing. So let's put it in perspective. The 21st was about preparation for next levels of shifts, changes, and transformation. So there's never going to be no shift that happens on the day. Those who were doing the inner work for the past 10 years will be as prepared as they ever could be. You don't know what the shift, change, and transformation is going to be for you. It's going to be what it's going to be for all of us, something different. If you were doing the work, you're going to be totally prepared. You're going to relax into it. If you wasn't doing the work for the past 10 years, there's nothing you can do to be prepared. Unfortunately, you'll get through, but you're too behind to make those significant shifts, changes, and transformation that the ones who've been doing the serious work for the 20 years. So the lesson is never take the cycles for granted. Never just see this as just information and I'll get back to it. It goes back to listening to the information, contemplating and studying the information, and then contemplating the deeper meaning of it. What does it all mean? This is not just stuff for conversation. And there's just too much conversation going on in our community. We become masters of good conversation. Conscious folks are supposed to be good conversationalists, and we are. But there's this disconnect between the conversation and the experience.
Yeah.
So the lesson is, don't take the blessing of the cycles for granted. So the superpower is and always was presence of mind and staying conscious through the crises. Y'all got that? The superpower is and always was staying conscious through the crises and having presence of mind. Everybody's so fixated on being different these days. When through social media and the computer and your phones, it's done taking uniqueness away. It was easy to be unique 15 years ago when everybody didn't have access. Everyone had to be way more creative because you didn't know what they was doing in Africa. You didn't know what they was doing in Brazil. You had to use your mind and your imagination. Now everybody's connected every day, all day. You're never disconnected. We're just we don't get any downtime, so everybody's always knowing what each other's doing, so everyone's more the same than any time else. In reality, the different ones are the true superheroes, because the true superheroes have presence of mind and they stay conscious through the crises. So this year, there's going to be extreme challenges. And if you could stay calm and stay conscious through the crisis, you're going to be a superhero. They be like, yo, didn't such and such happen? You be like, yeah, I saw it. They be like, how are you calm? That's a superhero. When everybody else is going helter skelter, you're calm. There's going to be people checking out because of this virus. So you got the stuff that they're doing to the rainforest. You got the Arctic ice is melting. So new virus is going to come. All of it ain't necessarily people making it up in laboratories. There's just supposed to be a certain homeostasis, a certain balance on this planet, and we've thrown the joint off. I think they said with all the new building structures is now heavier than the Earth itself, or something like that.
Yeah.
All the artificial structures that man has built is now heavier than the actual Earth. That's crazy. So that's, we have to be aware of the balance. The rainforest is also that stuff is melting that should have never melted. That's going to release viruses and bacteria we're not prepared for. Whether you're healthy or not, we're going to be challenged. But those who know how to stay calm and have presence of mind and stay conscious through the crises, those are going to be the superheroes, because you are ever aware of who you are, your capabilities, and your resources. Whether your resources is the crystals that you're working with, whether the resources is your ancestor altars that you're working with, or whether your resources is diet and fasting, or whether your resources, the original resources, your mind, which is the hashtag mind your mind. So all of that's to say is coming down to the strong and the weak. And everybody is strong and weak at the same time. You see, Ma'at is always ever present. It's never this absolute thing. Like, that is Ma'at right there. You're like, no. Ma'at is very subtle. It's levels to the whole thing. It's going to come down to the strong and the weak. And so you might be strong at your level, but to somebody that's more advanced, you're weak. So you're strong at your level, to someone behind you, you're weak. So the charge of the strong is to remain sensitive to the weak and the less fortunate. So this is to quell all the crybabies out there, because everybody's always, no, the strong got to take care of it. What are you going to do to pay us money? We need food and such and such. Be like, yeah, the strong be like, yeah, I'm going to look out for you a little. But the charge of the weak is to resolve your karma and get on and resolve your karma and step up your game. So the charge of the strong is this. It comes from the book of Ptah-Hotep. If respect for right exists in the heart of those who have been set in authority, they will be beneficent always, and their wisdom shall endure forever. See, understand, so if the strong take care of the weak will always secure the spot of the strong. Now, what about the weak? Ptah-Hotep. This used to be everyone's favorite quote. Be diligent as long as you live, always doing more than is commanded of you. Do not misuse your time while following your heart, for it is offensive to the Ka to waste one's time. Do not lose the daily opportunity to increase that which you have, meaning nobody is responsible to give you anything. You need to be on your grind, on your hustle, on your purpose. It shouldn't be nobody else's purpose to make sure you eat unless you're a child. That's why I had to do the God Mentality podcast. I got to speak to men about being men. She has to speak to the women about being real women. We got to have these real uncomfortable conversations. And real men and real women take care of the less fortunate, but don't make a living off of being the quote unquote less fortunate. Right. Y'all understand that? Sure. I hope so. Do not lose the daily opportunity to increase that which you have. Diligence produces gains, and gains do not endure when diligence is abandoned. So nobody
Stays weak.
stays weak, is alleviated from hard work, or should I say effort. You need to have sustained effort. So let us stop obsessing with new rituals and techniques and learn how to master what it is you have. So if you got if you have two breathing techniques, that's all you need. If you only know one meditation posture, that's all you need. That breathing and that meditation posture has things that it's needing to reveal to you. So in a sense, less is always more in spirituality. It's not about the accumulation of information. It's about the proper processing of your experiences. So at this time, we're forced to get real with our lives and realistic about our mortality and our death. It's more present than it's been in a while. We're close to our ancestors, where we have to really now contemplate life and what is the meaning of life? What is our purpose of life? We really got so comfortable with technology that we thought it was going to keep us totally safe. So this time that we're living in is threw us in a topsy-turvy. So it's really checking us. So are we prepared for death? Some people can say, yeah, I'm not scared of death. So you don't have to be scared of death, but you don't have to be reckless either. You don't rush the process either. So over the course of time, the temples and the spiritual organizations have given you a litany of things to assuage your fears about death, but we're coming to this reality of no matter how confident you are, you're not invincible. And that's what's scary to people. No matter how confident you are not invincible. We've seen people that appear to do everything right and they checked out last year. We lost Dr. Sebi. We thought Dr. Sebi was the top of the line, top of the game. Intuitively, we always be thinking our healer's got to live forever. But he was out of here. Not saying that he died of the coronavirus. We lost Dr. Africa. Those two was two of the smartest men I ever heard in my life. And their discipline level, far as I was concerned, was off the charts. And they out of here. And yet, there's other people that didn't do anything right and they're still here. They drinking, smoking, got the coronavirus, still survived and things like that. So nobody is promised anything to come out of this thing unscathed. So what we're left with is going back to mind your mind and minding your frequency. So we're living in high energy times. High energy times means there's opportunities for growth. That's the elevated way of seeing things. If you're in the lower way of seeing things, you'll see there's problems. So for those who got their head on their shoulders, this is a good time we're living in. For those who are still fighting their insecurity, they're scared. So we're going to end it by saying this. You need to find your path. Finding your path is the easiest thing. We got to stop playing around. So those of you who think you want to be Kemetic, and do what it is that you need to do to be Kemetic. Be Moorish, be Israelite, be Christian. Stop playing. Find your path and get on your path. That's the part two. Finding your path is one thing. It's one thing to be on here listening to different speakers and stuff. You got people pouring out their heart, their time, their energy, their work, trying to create a home for you all. And everybody's on this, the revolution is televised. Everybody's totally watching in the comfort of their own home. So find your path, get on your path. And I know people have these opinions about how getting on the path is supposed to look. So we're into the African tradition thing. Initiation is required. You ain't getting around it. You could do your own thing, but then you won't be authentically African in the sense that we read about how our ancestors did things. We talk about reclaiming the ways of our ancestors. So initiation is required. We got people that's responsible for being keepers and openers of the way for that process for you all. So find your path. Get on your path, which I think the third one is. Find your path, get on your path. Stay on your path. That's right, stay on the path. So you're going to have to find your tribe. For those who want to join our tribe, you need to be at the first hour orientation. That's the opening to the tribe. So you'd be like, well, what if people are mistreating people? Like, how are you going to tell me to stay in an unbeneficial situation? Of course, you access the information. You have to decide whether is it more good or bad. So if you got 50 things right in this whole thing, and you got these 3 things that you feel very strongly about, we have to look at it in a mature manner. 50 good things, 3 things that you feel strongly about. You now have to, you now might become victim of making a mountain out of a molehill, right? So there's nothing more sad when people leave something that's good under the illusion that there's something better out there. We've done that with our people. We have this illusion that there's some ideal organization, some ideal religion, some ideal spiritual path, some ideal location that you could go where you don't got to work, where you ain't got to do nothing. Some people, they got this mythological place where they ain't got to deal with people. People are just very immature in what they think things, how they think life is supposed to play out. So I'm going to say it like this. Us with the Temple of Anu and our Shrine of Ma'at people, my thing, like, if we can't make this thing work, if they can't make their thing work, if we can't make it work collectively after all the work that we've done, it's a wrap for us as a people. I'm not saying we're responsible for all melanated people on the planet, but we have a charge and a responsibility that we've gotten from our ancestors and our deities that we're supposed to do something with this legacy. If we can't work this thing out, it's a wrap, because I don't know if y'all understand, we messed up with this last generation coming under. They're not going to be the ones that develop anything better than what we got now. We've afforded them way too many liberties. Now we got a generation coming up with us. They're self-destructive, they're narcissists, they're addicted to drugs, have no discipline, no sense of limitations. So if you leave what it is that we're trying to establish, what we're trying to establish is to get them correct, because look, we're not totally responsible in our circles, but collectively us as a people are responsible for what we've done and what we didn't do for this generation under us. So we got to go even harder and try harder to make what it is that we do successful, because eventually that thing, their reality is going to shatter and they're going to need something to come to. So if we all quit and we don't establish it the way it's supposed to be, it's a wrap for us. So the times that we're living in is testing our integrity all the way down to the cellular level with this virus and these so-called viruses. So your integrity and who you say you are and what you stand on is being tested on the cellular level. These years coming, no stone will be unturned in our lives. Every crevice of the soul will be illuminated. So that's why we have to fall back on mind your mind. And as we set up to secure ourselves in the new future, in the new year, we have to manage our ego. So I'm going to leave y'all with several points about what's managing the ego look like. Managing the ego is go deeper within, meaning you're smart, but you're not as smart as you think you are. There's way too much ego going on in our community. Everybody thinks they know so much. You can't tell people nothing. So you're smart, but go deeper within. Go to deeper dimensions of what it is that you think you know. Nobody care about them facts that you spitting out your mouth. Nobody care about those definitions of other people's thoughts that you're spitting out your mouth. Go deeper within. 2, you can always get better and you can always be better. That's self-explanatory. 3, don't resist your lessons just because you don't like how it's being brought to you or who is being brought through. I'm going to repeat that. Don't resist your lessons just because you don't like how it's being brought to you or how it's being brought to you or who is being brought through. And lastly, always be mindful of your maturity in sensitive matters. I feel like that's a strong message to end up this year, that we could flesh this ego talk out next year.
We will. We definitely will.
So I conclude with that.
Dua for giving us a rousing message to propel us forward and prepare us for 2021 and for the cycle that's ahead of us, that we must continue to work on ourselves so we can master ourselves so we can master the cycle. Dua Nazar. All right, so for those of you who joined us today, we greatly appreciate the energy that you shared with us. Some of you may feel motivated to show us some reciprocity in the form of a donation. You can do so on Cash App. $ Temple of Anu, or by PayPal, templeofanew@gmail.com. We really are grateful for the donations that you all shared with us this year, as they did allow us to invest in quite a number of things, the technology and things like that, to put together the Reading of the Year podcast, to put together the God Mentality podcast, just to put us in a good position to be able to do more and be more present for all of you in 2021. So you'll get a chance to see the benefits of those investments in us, as we use it to help us to invest better in you. And so we're so grateful for that. So thank you again today for the donations and the energy that you send to us on Cash App and PayPal. If you're not able to send a donation in that form, again, we appreciate the energy that you share with us today. We will be back here in 2 weeks for our regularly scheduled communion, the very first communion of 2021. But in the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, because there are a lot of things happening between now and then. Again, the First Down Kemet orientation, the launch of the God Mentality podcast, as well as the audio download for the Reading of the Year 2021. Those things will all be coming out soon, and you guys don't want to miss it. So stay tuned to us on on Instagram and on Facebook. I did see Anitra's message. For PayPal, you can just use our email address, which is templeofanew@gmail.com, to send a donation by PayPal. Dua. And one last congratulations to our students this year, First Zion Kemet graduates from winter 2020 and summer 2020. As Nasib mentioned, we also have a naming ceremony coming up for, I want to say that First Zion Kemet group was like 2018 or something. They was a little ways back. But they have completed their Kemetic Women's Wisdom Training and Kemetic Men's Mastery Training, and so we'll have a naming ceremony for them. And then we have another group that is almost finished with their Kemet and Kamut experiences, and so again, they will have a naming ceremony sometime soon. So we'll share all of that we'll have a lot of stuff to celebrate in 2021.
The community is growing.
The community,
The
yeah.
quarantine made us grow.
Yeah, to our netter. So yeah. So we will be obviously in communication with all of you and ongoing. And so do our netter. Shami Matab.